Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank y'all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guests.
Hi, I'm Ben Grace.
And I'm Karen Thurston, and we are Story and Tune.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Well, ours is actually more of an Instagram profile because that's where we met. We met on Instagram.
Cool.
And
the old-fashioned way.
We did. That's right. So let's see. Gosh, where to begin with this? Well, let's just start with we met on Instagram several years ago, and Ben slid into my DMs and said, would you like to write a song together sometime?
Oh.
Which I have since learned they say to everyone on the internet, but I felt very special at the time. And we did. We wrote a song together. I think we talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer for a little bit.
Ah, yes.
You were in Texas or...
Texas when I first slid into your DMs.
At the time, moving around, trying to figure out where you were going to land.
Yep.
And we wound up writing a song. By the time we got around to writing the song, you were in Birmingham.
UK.
Not
Alabama.
Yes.
Yeah, the Birmingham.
The original.
The Birmingham.
Yeah.
But
I learned that there is a British version of an American city.
Oh, yeah.
Many, right? Oh, my God.
All the time.
So many. And the rest, as they say, is history. So that was, we wrote a song together. We became romantically involved. We staged a meeting in Golden, Colorado in a bar where we finally met for the first time.
Perfect.
And we got married in 2020 on the internet, just like a lot of other people, which I honestly recommend. I think it's good fun to...
There's a lot of overhead.
Oh, yeah.
It was so cheap, and people tuned in from 5 continents, and then we just turned them off when we were done. We had dinner, and it was really nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, how about individually? How did you all each get into music?
Sure.
Yeah, I started out when I was 10 years old, playing classical piano. We didn't have a lot of money in my house, and so I'd always been musical. My parents tell the story that before I was born, they would turn the radio on when I was in the womb, and I would start moving, they'd turn the radio off, and I would stop. So I just had music in my veins.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a lot of money, and so it wasn't until 10, which is quite late for a piano player to start. But I did 10 years of classical piano, and then sometime in high school, I was kind of playing in the high school band. I can't remember what I was playing at the time because I would play whatever instrument was closest to the prettiest person in the band. That's how I operated.
DMs.
Yeah.
That is wildly clever for a young man.
It's a strategy. But I was informed by the bass player that across the top of the music, across the top of the score, there was that G/F pound, and that actually meant something. It meant chords. And it opened up my world because I'd been at my piano improvising. When my mother thought I was practicing, I was just improvising for hours. I was a teenage person. I was kind of getting out my feelings. And finally, that gave me the way to write down that so I could collaborate with other people. And so that week, I literally sat down, wrote out the chords to a song that I'd written, wrote the lyrics, recruited a band, entered the talent competition at high school and won, and I was hooked. That was the spot where I was just like, I want to write songs. That's what I want to do. So yeah, my entire adult life I've been a musician, and I've toured over 40 states in America, and kind of in the UK and Australia and lots of places, and I've done it all. So music, I produce, I write songs, record. Yeah, you name it, I do it. So it's been a lifetime of being a musician, which I'm really grateful and fortunate for, because I know it's a hard industry to make it, and to kind of this is my life's work. So
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And just a quick question. When did you move to the States officially?
13 years ago.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, 2011. So I've been here for a while. I was in New York for most of the time, 7 years there. When we met, I was for about 6 months kind of in flux, Texas, Colorado, the UK, kind of wandered. And then when we met, she was just like, you should come out to San Diego. So moved to San Diego for Karen. And then we moved up to Portland about 18 months ago. So seen a decent amount of kind of the States. But I just love this part of the world. I think the Pacific Northwest is absolutely magic and really glad to be here. I think amazing people, food, the art, musicians around here are spectacular. So really, really happy to be here.
Yeah, very much so. And it is a pretty great place. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Let's hear from you.
Oh, exact same story, actually. No. I'm a musical theater kid. That's my background. I grew up in a kind of I call it a big box, like Costco evangelical church in California. And my parents had me in the Easter musicals when I was 2 and 3. So I started pretty young doing all of that, and then did theater all through school and music along with it. Just growing up in church and school and all of the places that you could possibly be a theater kid. I theater kidded as hard as I could. And got my degree in theater eventually. And then a few years after that, had kind of a traumatic life event and stepped away from doing music entirely for about 14 years. So I didn't do anything aside from sort of occasionally sing something with my parents, or at a friend's wedding when they really, really asked me to, but just didn't do anything. And to the point that when Ben came into my life, I had been doing lyric work with a couple of musician friends, but I hadn't performed at all in ages and ages. And so when Ben was like, do you want to write? I was like, sure, I'm not a musician, but I can write words. I'm a writer. That's what I do professionally. And so I'm happy to give you some words. And they're like, great. And when Ben first moved to San Diego, I couldn't sing in front of them to save my life. I would feel like there was a full-on tennis ball in my throat of anxiety, the physical manifestation of anxiety. And it took, probably 6 months of you being very patient and kind of coaxing me gently to really kind of get me back in the groove a little bit. And then when the pandemic hit, we had just moved into a house with some dear friends of ours who are also musicians, theater kids, the whole thing. And so we started doing a Thursday night live stream with them we called it Heathen Happy Hour. We were hosting a podcast at the time, and we would just do silly cover songs. We'd let people make requests. And so over the course of the pandemic, we did a bajillion of those, and we learned 700 cover songs.
Wow.
Learned. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a book for that.
We flew by the skin of our teeth through 700 cover songs, and it kind of got me over my stiffness and my fear and the trauma that was still in me around music. And so
not think about it. You just had to do it.
we had to do it, and it was fun. We had live comments coming through, and it was goofy and silly, and it really took the pressure off. And so when we came out of pandemic, then we had all these cover songs, and Ben and I were like, well, we'd already, Story in Tune existed. We were writing together, and we were writing songs for kid shows together. We write for little baby TV shows, which is fun. But we had all these cover songs. We just started playing out around San Diego and testing it out in the real world, and had a lot of fun there. And here we are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into more of what y'all do in the present day, I do have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on.
Great.
This first one is one we ask early. It's one we ask often. And it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you each bought with your own money?
Oh.
Yeah. My first one was Celine Dion.
Okay.
Love. An absolute
You're
banger.
So cool.
It still slaps. I mean, Celine, she's the queen for a reason.
Yeah.
Phenomenal vocals. I honestly was really emotional seeing her at the Olympics recently because I know she's been through the ringer with health. And I feared we would never see her again. And I hear she's now in recovery and actually kind of back. And I'm so glad because I would love to see. I've never seen her live, and I would love to see her live. But yeah, I love that album. I think every song is amazing.
I mean, she is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, Canada, you win with this one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It wins with a lot of people. I mean,
yeah, Ryan Reynolds, Jim Carrey. We're not going down.
Come on, so many.
Shania Twain.
Yep.
Basically all of Canada.
Isn't Canada? Is it Canadian?
Canadians.
Yeah. Wait, is
Nickelback.
Canadian?
Probably. Listen. It's that.
Wait, is Nickelback Canadian?
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
I'm pretty sure he's a
I'm pretty sure they're
Put that in the
Canadian.
comments.
I think Nickelback gets a bad rap. I think that they don't deserve all of the shade that we are constantly.
No,
The show is not anti-Nickelback.
all right, good to know.
Pro Nickelback either. We are neutral Nickelback.
Thank you.
Partisan Nickelback.
Yeah, like
Long fine. That's where I land as well.
I think they've contributed some things to music. I would be, follow me to not say so. But like,
They were doing their
They are
best.
the
You know,
universal punching down for
they
musicians.
really are.
yeah.
I mean, I guess everyone has to have something to punch down to, and that's not always good. But I feel like that's the running musician joke.
Yeah. Somebody had to pick somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to pick on Nickelback and you have to yell "Freebird" at a concert, right? Like those are the things you must do.
Well, before we stop talking about Canadians and Alanis Morissette,
There it is.
I mean,
that's who I was trying to think
seriously.
of. Yeah.
Queen of Canada.
Yes. Yes.
Oh gosh.
yeah.
All right. And then what about you?
Boy, I wish my first album that I bought with my own money was Alanis Morissette, but it was not. It probably would have been either Boyz II Men or Mariah Carey. It would have been one of the two.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it. I'm not ashamed of this. I just, I would have liked to be.
I think everybody would wanted their first album to be Alanis
I
Morissette.
would have liked to be
Oh, yeah, I mean,
the
yes.
cool punk rock kid, and I was not that.
I mean, Celine Dion, Mariah Carey. I mean, they were like Blur and Oasis in the 90s.
Yeah,
it was they were kind of the two, divas who were kind of going head to head.
And that's probably true. The other very probable truth is that it was some sort of like secondhand Les Miserables soundtrack or Phantom of the Opera, something like that, because that was really what I was listening to. But my first concert was John Denver, and I feel like that
Okay.
that is the street cred I
That's
like to
pretty
take.
legit.
Yeah.
The next question anyway.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah.
perfect. Sorry, I jumped there, but
Now, I mean, we'll segue well into that one. Now, technically, the first question is, what was the first concert you each went to with your own money?
oh yeah, see, that was not it.
Oh, my answer for this is I was just reminiscing about this with my best friend, childhood friend, the other day across Instagram. We went to the Big Day Out, which is a massive festival. It doesn't exist anymore, sadly, in Australia, but it was always on Australia Day, which is January 26th. So it's like July 4. So it's the height of summer. It's the hottest day of the year. And you go to an outside festival and, drink and get high.
Yep.
Yeah. And actually the first, I can't remember if it was the first or the second Big Day Out I went to, Limp Bizkit played and a woman died in the crowd that day. So it was crazy.
Some real highs and lows in this story.
I know.
That had the biggest pendulums.
Yeah. But it was phenomenal. And so it was, it's all day, it's bands. I mean, I saw, Hole and Marilyn Manson and like Coldplay and oh gosh. Yeah, so many people.
Yeah.
And also why am I blanking? Rammstein.
Okay.
German band. I still remember them because they shot flaming arrows over the audience, and then at some point one of them like strapped on a giant dildo and it sort of jizzed into the crowd, which was just like liquid. But it was just like it was something I'd never seen before. And as a sheltered little church kid, I was like, okay, that guy just jizzed a giant dick across. So, it was very memorable for a lot of reasons. But yeah, that was my own money, the first concert I saw.
Oh, yeah. Well, that sounds like a wild experience.
Yeah.
I have to ask, was it Limp Bizkit and then Marilyn Manson and then Coldplay in that order? Like, was that the lineup at some point?
I don't think that Coldplay and the Limp Bizkit, I think it was like Marilyn Manson, Whole, Limp Bizkit, something like that.
Gotcha.
Late at night, it was much more harder edged.
Yeah.
I think Coldplay was a different Big Day Out. I think we went to two of them.
Okay.
But it was the first Australian tour of the Parachutes album.
Oh,
So, this was
okay.
before they were, a massive global. I mean, they were doing really well, but there was that record that was a breakout record, and it was pretty wild. I mean, honestly, when I think back on that, they weren't that spectacular on stage, and Chris was sort of running around doing his thing, but at that point, he was just a geeky white boy. Everyone was like, okay, we know, it's all yellow, but no one else really kind of knew anything else. But so that it was before they were like huge.
Gotcha. Okay.
I love Coldplay in that lineup. I love the idea of them just like, it's like Marilyn Manson, hold and they're like, light will guide.
That was before that song came out.
Crying in the corner. Oh, I know, but the spirit is there.
Yeah.
Boy, we had very different experiences with our first concert.
I was going to say, what was the first one you went to? The first one you chose to go to.
A wildly popular Christian ska band called Five Iron Frenzy.
I love Five Iron Frenzy.
Thank you.
All of A New Hope on bass.
Amazing. All quality humans are big Five Iron Frenzy stands because, like, if you grew up like a youth group kid, Five Iron Frenzy were pretty ahead of their time. They were pushing boundaries and buttons like way before it was a cool thing to do. They were standing up for like what they believed was right. They weren't particularly patriotic in a way that parents were very uncomfortable with. And I had just the utmost respect for them. I still do, honestly, to this day. And they had, Jeff the girl in their band, which, like, come on. That was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. So I went to every Five Iron Frenzy concert that I could get close to in high school, and
awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. So now we can have a Five Iron Frenzy jam sometime, which is perfect.
We should tell our nerd story about Five Iron Frenzy.
You want to? Go ahead.
Because it was the pandemic, I think, right? Reese, who's kind of the lead singer of Five Iron Frenzy, put on to his socials that they were starting a microphone company, and they wanted to make like a microphone that was the equivalent of the Neumann, like something really, really good, but at a kind of budget price point for musicians. Because he's just like, this is one of those things, musicians, it's just like, when you want to record something, well, you want a good microphone. And a lot of them are really, really out of reach. So they did a Kickstarter, and it had the nerdiest Five Iron Frenzy video.
It was great.
That was just like totally weird and robots and the whole thing was normal. But they did it, and there was only, to fund the Kickstarter, there was only maybe 10 of them ever made. And we have one.
Whoa.
It's very special. It's a
surprise. We actually have.
And here it is. And if you enter the raffle,
it's really cool.
It's a beautiful mic. It's really pretty, and it's all like white and shiny and lovely, and it's very neat. And that is our most niche piece of equipment that we own.
That is a very particular situation, but that is really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Just quick question to follow that up. What were your thoughts on Roper?
Big sigh.
I'm a big Brave Saint Saturn kid.
Fair.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. I kind of eased out in college at a time where, like, there's a lot of, it's hard for me to untangle the bad bits from the good bits at some point. But I did really love, they did a little side project called Brave Saint Saturn that I fully stand behind to this day, even though it is weird.
Fair. All right. Well,
let's get Christian side projects. You can they went up in some odd places.
Well, I mean, nobody beats Garth Brooks when it comes to side projects.
Oh boy! All right. With that being said, let's go ahead. We're going to get on more into the y'all in the present day. We are going to get a super easy one out of the way first. How'd you pick the name?
Oh, I think it came out of your head. I'm pretty sure, but how it kind of works for us is Karen is story and I'm tune. So most of the time in this collaboration, Karen is the lyric writer, and live, she's the talkative one, and I'm the kind of, I write most of the tunes to the songs, and then live, I'm the only one playing an instrument. So I'm the one shifting the looper, resetting my keyboard, tuning my mandolin. While
stomping to kick the bass drum, elbows to do the cymbals,
while Karen's like introducing the songs and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, I don't remember where it came from exactly.
I don't know either. I think that we had toyed with, naming bands, naming projects is hard, and
oh boy,
marketing is my day job. That's what I do. And I think that we went through lots of, lovely ideas of poetic, beautiful things we could do. And then we really just liked the simplicity of story and tune is true. It's accurate to who we are and what we do. We are songwriters at our core. That is our primary identity, even though we love performing and we love, all of that, everything that comes with it. But the songwriting is really
the
central part. Yeah. And those are the two elements that we bring to the table in our collaborations. The story meets the tune. And
gotcha.
That's how we roll.
I think that. Well, it's very fitting, and it's cool because it's easy to remember, easy to spell. It's got a good sound off the top, and for sure nobody else is going to have it, so you don't have to worry about Googling and like finding out. Oh, this is the name of a Hubble telescope the whole time.
Yeah. It's not. we wrestled a little bit with like, oh, it's not cool. It's not very cool, but it
At the
is.
same time, a lot of the hipster shops are this and that. This
Yeah,
song
it's
cute.
got a little.
You know,
you can put a plus sign in the logo and make it look hip, but what it is easy to remember and accurate. And that at the end of the day, we wanted people to walk away from the show and be able to find us afterwards. You know.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. Well, you definitely nailed it on that one.
Thank you.
Now I want to take a moment and talk about y'all's writing process. And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning.
Okay.
When you get inspired, you're ready to make music. What do you do to get a track started?
Starts with her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, individually, we're very different writers. So I tend to be a very fast, all in sort of a writer. A lot of times I'll have the whole, I've caught the muse and the whole thing will land on me, or I'll wake up with it in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time there's a show called The Queen's Gambit that is this chess player, and she sees the chess pieces on the ceiling kind of moving around. And that's sort of how words work for me in my head. As I'm going through my day, I'm literally singing words and rearranging them almost like they're on paper. In my head, and just kind of lining things up. And so for me, I often will write the whole song in my head first and then put it down on paper somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then usually I then come and go, hi, hello.
It's infuriating.
How are you?
She can be in the car.
How's it going?
She should be talking and then go quiet and pick up her phone. And I look over and I can see the notes app and just know, like, she's gone,
Yeah.
But it'll happen so quickly, oftentimes.
Yeah.
But that's why it's infuriating. I mean, it is an incredible gift, but for me, I love lyrics, and they take a while to craft. And I think that's the experience of a lot of musicians. Is like lyrics are the thing you chase, and it can take years.
Yeah.
I'm on the farthest end of that spectrum. I know a lot of words. I don't know how to make a musical.
Yeah. That's my favorite thing. And so what happens then is I wind up sort of throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall, the wall being Benjamin, the lyrics being the spaghetti, and see what will stick and see what gets them excited and what feels good. And then often, there will be one. A lot of times you'll read them and be like, that's nice, honey, thank you. And then
I don't know.
often, though, you'll find one that you're like, oh, this one, I hear it, it resonates for me, like this feels good. And then usually
I usually sit down at a guitar or a piano or whatever's kind of nearby and kind of get something. I think one thing that's really interesting, because I do write songs with other people, but I do feel like this collaboration, when Karen writes a lyric, I generally hear the melody ways that is interesting. And it's not, we're kind of writers that we don't have, a very like super defined sound. We kind of write across genres a little bit. But it's one of those things where I'm just like, oh, and oftentimes I think you do have a reference. Like with one of our songs, you're just like, oh, I think this needs to feel like the Devil Went Down to Georgia, and will give me a mood to play with or a genre to play with. And then it's just like, oh, cool, I'll take a listen to it. Then I'll be like, enough to kind of get a sense and then pause and then sit down and go. And what's interesting, I think, about our process is both of us work pretty fast in that. And I think when you have a defined lyric, when Karen delivers it to me, there's the verse, there's the chorus, there's the structure is there. So then it's just a matter of just like getting it. And both of us, I think, kind of work from quite an intuitive place. So I think that's kind of how the writing comes out, because it's just like, oftentimes people are like, I can't believe that's just one person that's written that song. Yeah. But it's because both of us, I think, are intuitively just like responding to in the moment.
Well, it helps too that I think y'all, I imagine you both know each other musically pretty well at this point.
Yep.
And I mean, you are giving him kind of an easy lob up when it's an entirely written song. Like usually the words are the last thing that kind of come into play. So to be able to just build underneath that, it's gotta go somewhat quickly. And I imagine he kind of knows of how you sing now. So it's just like he can probably hear your singing in his head when he looks at the words.
Most of the time. Yeah. Most of the time, Ben will come back with a song that now is finished and I will go, yes, good, wonderful, that's lovely. Occasionally.
I was going to say, and actually...
We're getting more into, I think, recently into like collaborating more in that process. Once it's not me just by myself in another room.
Yeah.
coming and then delivering a thing. Oftentimes we'll sit at the piano and like really kind of work at it, because I think we've got our latest stuff is veering into a direction that I think is a little more complicated. With my classical piano background and Karen's musical theater, we're really kind of delving more into those kind of realms, and it does require a little bit of massaging to like, yeah, that chord's not dramatic enough, or it needs to be a little bit, it's not just like writing a 4-chord pop song. We're trying to kind of write some stuff that is more interesting musically.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I will say about the very beginning of the process that, we stumbled into during lockdown, during the pandemic, there were so many people who were like, I wrote a whole album. I wrote 3 albums. I wrote 9 albums during the pandemic. And I found it really hard to write because I think for me, those words it's very observational. It's very much pulled from just being out in the world and seeing what's going on and being with people and overhearing someone's conversation. And when that dried up, we had a really hard time creating anything. It was really, really hard to find inspiration. So
yeah, I was in the same boat on that. Except for now, obviously, because I do this full time.
Yeah,
the pandemic was the only other time where I wasn't like working on music.
Yeah,
which is weird to me because I was home
the
whole time. But like something about being in the house all day, I didn't get to leave it and come back to it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get to go, oh, I'm home, music equipment. Did you miss me?
Yeah,
I missed you. And so I think there is something about that where like some people found the opportunity to be like, oh, we're going to dive all the way into it. And other people were just like, no, it doesn't work.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a world builder. I'm a synthesizer, and so I'm retelling what I'm seeing in the world. I'm not a, Tolkien. I'm not creating a universe. I'm telling a story of what I'm seeing. And when I'm not seeing much, I run out of things to say pretty fast.
That's a cool thing to acknowledge, though. It's interesting to have taken the time to like observe how your music is created directionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's something probably more people should spend a little more time on. That is actually a really interesting thing. I'm gonna sit with that. I don't want to break that down too much further while we're here to find out more about y'all.
The one thing I think I will say about that is I think there is something about us where, I think we're both drawn to saying things about the world and trying to reflect back to the world the way it is. Like one of the songs, our first song that we released as Story and Tune was called Torch, and it was observation about that it started out as a song about from your best friend who's afraid of birds. That's one of the lyrics that's in there. Yep. And then became about the Statue of Liberty, and then really where it landed was it's kind of about the American dream and the heart of the American dream and how we've lost that a little bit. They give me you're tired, pour your masses, yearning to live free. Like we've lost that a little bit. And so I think for both of us, the sense of kind of what we're doing is kind of blue collar, where we're trying to like into poetry and music and songs, kind of tell the working class story in so many ways, and the average everyday story, and that's inspiring to both of us, and I think that's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, very much so. And we're definitely going to talk about your actual music in just a moment. But staying on topic of the creation side of things for a moment. And actually, you kind of brought this up earlier, so we're going to kind of circle back to it now. Is that you guys said that you have pretty much everything locked in as you're going along. What about the moments where it doesn't click right away? What does that look like as far as like working out creative differences?
Most of the time it falls on you, poor you, because I'm often the instigator of the process. A lot of times, like I said, Ben will come back and I'll be like, yes, perfect. And every once in a while they'll come back with a melody and I'm like, nope, that is not it. And then we have a really deep respect for each other as artists and creators. And so I ultimately will defer to Ben musically. I have a lot of ideas about how I think things should sound, and some of them are fantastical. Like some of them are not real music things. So I'll be like, here, we should change time signatures 3 times, and we should do this, and we should do that. And Ben is like, we should not actually do that because it will
change every chorus.
Really.
What are you, a 90s country star?
Your evangelical roots are showing, baby girl. But a lot of times I will have a strong feeling of how I need it to feel and not the best way of articulating that. And Ben, God love them, is very patient with me and willing to rework. And if we very rarely are at a hardcore impasse.
Yeah.
If we are, we write a lot of songs and we'll often just back burner that one for a while and then just let it simmer and come back
for a while. Like there was one song that we rewrote this year that we kind of started on, and we wrote a draft of it, and I don't think either of us were really excited about the musical direction of it. So we just kind of let it, and then we came back and rewrote it because I think it came back up again in the conversation. I'm just like, we should just have another shot at that. And we finished it, and I really like it now, much more than I did. And then there was one, it was so funny, we were trading things backwards and forwards, often I'll be out, and then Karen would just I really want to finish this song. And I was just like, I finished that song 2 years ago. And I literally sent the voice memo, and she was like, this is great.
I love it.
Like, I shared this when we wrote it.
Why haven't we done anything with this?
But I think sometimes there is that glut where we are working on multiple things.
Yeah.
And maybe there's one that it hits, and that becomes a song we put into our set list. And so there's another one that's just it just went by the radar.
Right.
So yeah, there's one that we literally need to play.
Really need to make that happen. Yeah. I think one of the things that is unique about us is we are songwriters professionally, beyond just our music projects that we do. We write to briefs for other people often. And so neither one of us at this point, we're both in our 40s, neither one of us is precious about our darlings anymore. We're very used to having something that we love and sending it off and having them be like, nope, sorry. And we're like, oh, bummer. And then we have to redo it. So I think that really factors in when we write with each other, when we co-write with other people, is that we're really free to throw things away, to rework things if they're not working, to move things around, to save a bit of something for a later date and put it into another song. We have a lot of playful freedom.
Yep.
In that way.
And sometimes it's also utilitarian. We need a particular song for the set. We need that medium tempo thing. And so then we go looking around with something we've written, or we start to, maybe we should rework that one. So sometimes it's just something doesn't get used because we just have 3 of that kind of song.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, we don't need any more. Obviously the ones that we really love, we really love.
Of course. Of course.
But, sometimes you just need a song in the middle of the set that's
and that bit's not romantic, that's not the sexy artistic part of it, but it is the business part of it. It's the work part of it. And it's that mentality and that approach has made it possible for us to make this our life, for a long time. So I think that has served us really well.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And then before we get into talking about the music itself, how long does it usually take you all to feel comfortable enough to perform a track once it's been written?
Oh, that depends. I think a lot of ones we're excited about, we try and figure it out pretty quickly. We do have a couple that we actually kind of really like, and so I'm a producer as well. So oftentimes, live, we use the Boss RC600 loop pedal, which is the big boy. And so there's 2 ways that we do that. One is I pre-loop some stuff at home, so we actually have a verse and a chorus, and I can move through sections. Or oftentimes I'll head into my studio and build a full backing track, which, then live I'll play the keyboard or the mandolin or whatever, and then we'll do the vocals live.
His name is Stefan.
Stefan, that's right.
Box. The Box has a name.
Very fancy looper. So
my old project, my NPC's name was Mike.
Mike.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, that's great.
That guy.
That guy.
But that's there.
That's perfect.
Yeah. If you're going to have a robot in your band, you may as well give it a name.
That's right.
Yeah. It's still a member of the band.
Very important.
It doesn't get any tax write-offs.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We love anthropomorphization. I knew I was going to say.
No, you really did it, though. You got there. You brought it around.
And all that to say is that there are a couple of songs that we've written that I started recording on, and they don't feel right yet. And I think that we often, because we're writing a lot, and because our live part of what we do is only part of our work in the world, and so we don't often have the time to rehearse them. So there's a couple that I'm just man, we really need to get that into the set because it'd be fun, but I've got to tweak the track, we've got to rehearse it more, I've got to learn the lyrics because I'm terrible with lyrics,
I feel you.
Yeah.
Ben is much more courageous than I am with like, let's just workshop this at our next gig. Let's just play this. And I'm much more like, I would like us to have it dialed before we do it live.
Y'all are definitely in a gray area too, because like technically like on stage is where you like finalize most music. But because y'all play to backing tracks and like have such a like heavy layer of additional non-human element, you kind of have to show up prepared so that you can just flush out like the nuances, the cadences in the real time.
Yeah. And a lot of our work has really tight harmony. And so it's hard to wing that when you don't totally know. Like a lot of what we do is really dependent on me being able to really track the way that Ben is laying the lyric down across the song. And when you're still experimenting with that, like
working on the melody,
it can get very messy. And so I think that that's where the theater kid in me comes out. I'm like, we need 6 weeks of rehearsals and then we can run the show, and
I think that's just partly, I've been a solo artist for so many years before that. That I liked to work out things on the road. I think that honestly a song is not really done until you've put it in front of an audience and you feel how it feels in your body, but also in the room. And so I think sometimes I'm rushing to get to that process because that's my like learned experience.
Yeah.
And we've been together for, like 4 or 5 years now, but that is just that compromise that Karen is slightly different to me. We do need to find those times, but
I'm coming closer to Ben as we go. Like the longer we do this, the more comfortable I am with the imperfection of working things out live and figuring all of that out as we go. Yeah,
it's a process, definitely.
And y'all are really
closing.
I was gonna say y'all are getting like really good at meeting in the middle on a lot of this process.
We're married in real life, and we have to do that because otherwise, it's very hard to live together in a small space.
I know I said that was the last one before we get into the music, but do y'all have any like pre-show rituals you do before you go on stage?
Play games on your phone?
Yes. Well, that's funny. But we have a dear friend in Nashville who has a workshop called Singing Clear, and she has a warm up that we always do in the drive on the way to the venue. It's about 15 minutes, so we're getting close to do that. A lot of the gigs we're doing, we're setting up gear. So I think it's kind of. Karen is a person who likes to be there an hour beforehand, like we were today, but we were just hanging around in Vancouver. It was nothing to do with you. It's just like, that's out, we want to beat the traffic, make sure we could get over the bridge.
I am very much in the same boat for my showcases. Everybody shows up at 6. I show up at 4.
Yeah.
It's nice to be prepared because, like venues, you've been to venues, so you never know what you're walking into.
Things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Even if it's the same venue.
Yes.
You just never know.
Never know.
Yeah. So we give ourselves plenty of time, and I think what's nice about that is it does allow you time to kind of, warm into the space a little bit, to sit in there, and I one of my personal things is I like to connect with people. So if there's a sound guy, if there's a bartender, whatever, it's nice to connect with folks and just get a sense of the people that you're working with in the room, because the venue is a collaborator in the show. So. Those are the things I think we like. I don't think we have any kind of totally, weird things that we do. It's all pretty just standard business stuff.
I got you. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about some of your music.
Awesome.
So I jumped on a ye old Spotify. And y'all have got some music going back to 2020. So that 4 or 5 years sounds about right. Yeah. And I got to say, now I understand why, but it's really good.
Thank you.
It's really good. It's very folky, a little twangy, but it's all put together really well. And there is clearly something special musically between the two of you. You have such complementary sounds, and like obviously some of that I imagine has to do with like good engineering. But in every song, there's a tenderness, there's a connection, and it makes it very obvious that you two like really understand each other on a handful of levels to kind of get to the point where the music is at. And like even your most recent album, Light from the Break, which I guess, it's been out for a little while now, but it's really a perfect example, I think. And it kind of highlights well what you said earlier. There is a huge variety of music in that album. Like the first song and the second song, there's a great duality between the two of them, but it's really engaging, really exciting. Like to hear both of those tracks made me have to listen to the rest of the album. Like it wasn't one of those ones where I'm like, all right, let me skim through to get to this spot. No, I was like, all right, I need to know what's next. Every song just brought something new, a little bit different, but it all still sounded like you guys. And it's really good. I am actually a really big fan of the album.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I am curious to know, out of all the music you have available at the moment, what are some of your favorite tracks to perform?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think one of the songs that has been kind of, I always said that the sleeper hit on the album is a song called Red Tide. And you can probably tell the story about how it came to be after this. But I think one of the things that I love about that is it has this, it sort of, it doesn't hit the chorus until quite a ways into the song.
Breaks the rule.
Because it's a story. It's a very folk story song, which is a ghost story song about bioluminescence. So you kind of get in there, and then when the chorus hits, though, it's this big octave jump and this big wail. And live, because I think we introduce it with this, here's a science lesson. And people are like, oh, expecting kind of some of this nerdy song. And then it just has this like real Irish just wail that is full of grief. And people, I think, live are just like, what just happened? I don't understand how you got science and then emotion like that. And I think that's one of the songs I think I always enjoy, because when you hit that chorus, you can feel people just like,
yeah.
It's a fun one. It lets us wail. And I think our songs tend to be pretty rangy. We tend to be very, classical pianist and musical theater kids. So we're like dynamic is kind of our keyword. And I like that one because it sort of lulls people into a false sense of security. And because we do the whole the songwriting rule is don't bore us, get to the chorus. And we just blatantly ignore it for that song. And it has a total false chorus.
Yep.
And everyone thinks, oh, this is going to be a nice little chill. And then it goes woof off the rails with the big wail. Yeah. And I love it. It's really fun to do. And it's theatrical and emotional and just a really fun one to bust out in a pub somewhere where people are like, what's happening? What are we doing? Why are we crying? And we're like, yeah, that's how we roll.
What's weird is, we wrote that in San Diego, and obviously the Red Tide phenomenon is there in San Diego. But Oregonians, I think that the cross-section, or people up here in the Pacific Northwest, cross-section of people who love nature, and then who also kind of like a good weird story. It's just kind of like we wrote it for the people up here. People really dig that song up here in Pacific Northwest.
Right, nerdy song
it's
for Portland.
Right in the intersection of nerd.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I actually really also enjoy the ones we've got available online right now. I really love doing I'll Never Tell. Yeah. I think it's a lot of fun. I'll Never Tell is a kind of a
slinky
little bluesy, funky moment for us because, who wants to stick to a genre? And it's a flirty song about essentially just contemplating having an affair is the basis of the lyric. But it's, I think, our truest duet that we perform live, where we really do switch back and forth on who's, we trade lead all of the time, but in that one, we trade verses, and it's really arranged as a duet in a way that a lot of ours aren't.
Yes.
So it's fun. It's just a fun departure.
Yep.
It's really fun to flirt with each other and everybody else in that song. It's a nice one.
I think it's fun to do the album tracks live because they have a slightly different life live, as you kind of know as a musician, and we have over time developed the album tracks with I'll Never Tell. There's little things that we say to each other in between the thing that's not on the record. Yeah, just little bits that we've kind of developed that I think people like listen to the album, they like the thing, and then they come and see it live, and it's like, oh, now it's three-dimensional.
Yeah,
and I think that's it is a hard thing. Recording is a hard thing. Live is a different thing, and those two things I think can be both unique.
Well, and even the acknowledgement that the two have to be separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially, in a world where backing tracks are very prominent and in some cases over prominent.
Yeah.
The decision to not just say, oh, well, we've already tracked this part for the album. Let's just put it in this project and let's do it live. The decision to be no, live. Let's make this longer. Let's make this shorter. Let's add in this part here. Hey, when we were at the show 3 weeks ago, this thing happened, and I think we should emphasize that more.
Yep.
The live version of a song has a longer shelf life in certain ways, but also it can change.
Yeah, an evolution.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
my favorite thing that happens for all of the songs is whenever we wind up with a grand piano, and because Ben becomes a different human being when there's a grand piano, and I'm just along for the ride because like I don't know what any of our songs are going to be like. There will be instrumental breaks that I did not anticipate. There will be choruses that go much longer than I thought. There will be a lot of whistling happens, like there. But and you know tempos will change, but it's really lovely because I feel like they've got a whole other language that kicks in when there's a grand piano in the room. So if you ever want to see a really fun and unique story and tune show, figure out the venue that's got a grand piano.
Yeah. Surprise part 2.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for going and sharing some of that with us. Now, before we get into the next part, this next question is going to be for each of you individually, and it's probably the densest question I have in the interview.
Awesome.
But we talked about, your experience with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and music one-on-one, what does music give back to each of you?
I would say, because I grew up in a really fundamentalist Christian sect, and I'm still a spiritual person today because I can't help but believe the world is ridiculous. It's all full of mystery and dark and light and all the rest of things. But I would say, like, even when I was kind of trying to be, fit in to my little Christian kind of world, the one thing that I could never quite grasp was the idea of prayer, which is weird because I'm a words person, right? But I struggled to do that thing. But I think when my fingers hit the ivories of the piano, like that was how I prayed. That's how I meditated. That's how the anxious, depressive teen that I was, that's the only way I could make sense of the world. I would come home after a hard day in school and just get all of it out. Get my aggression, get my grief. I would take all of those things to my piano, and my piano could hold it in a way that still remains to this day. I think that when Karen talks about the grand piano, that's still what comes out. Yeah, it's kind of like that. That's play. It's playing back at me. It's a conversation between me and that instrument. And maybe it's God or the music, whatever it is. There's something else that's at play there that I don't feel alone, and I don't feel. I've always struggled, I think, with belonging because of that Christian upbringing. That's the place. Music is the place that I feel most myself. And even a few years ago, when I really, in my mid-30s, kind of hit a really, really tough patch, and I was having like panic attacks and anxiety attacks. A lot of that stuff didn't come near my music on stage for a long time. That was the place where I felt had sanctuary. So, yeah, that's probably it, I would say.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that answer.
Thank you.
And what about you?
I think for me, I like my role in the world certainly is person who names things, puts words on things. That is my full-time vocation. It's who I've always been, is the girl with the words. And so I think...
with 10,000 words.
So many words. All of the words. And I think that I can be incredibly cerebral in that way. I can get very stuck in my head and just be trying to name things and rephrase them until they make sense. And I think that music gives me sort of a 1, 2, 3 punch of humility and permission and sort of a sense of timeline that I can't actually write a script for, if that makes sense. So I think music is the place where the things that are not nameable and are not, able, you can't put into paragraph form, right? Are expressed in a way that I desperately need to be reminded of all of the time. Like I need very much to be reminded that that is a real thing and that I can't always name the things that I feel, and I can't always contain we call what we do trauma-informed harmony. And I think that that's really real. I think that there are wonders and horrors that exist in the world that transcend language. And I love that we have this other way of communicating that kind of just holds space, just like creates a space that can resonate without, name.
Yeah. I think what is wonderful about songwriting in particular, because I think music is beautiful, and we've been doing a few shows recently for this organization called Swan Songs, which is new around Portland, and they're shows for the people who are dying. So it's kind of the people in late stages, they're in hospice, they're at home, and their families are gathering, and I think it might be the first time in 25 years, or maybe the first time in my life, I've actually been paid to play classical music and go back to some of those roots. And those places are super beautiful and sincere, and I love those spaces. And I think music has a story all of its own. But what I think I love particularly about songwriting is I saw this poet the other day at Livewire. I was filling in there, playing keys, and she'd written a book about kind of why poetry, what's poetry about, and all kind of stuff. And what she said was like, a good poem is like, it sets you in, who's talking, what are they talking about, where are they, it locates itself. And I think a good lyric does all those things, but then the music comes in underneath, and it's also like another little character. And it's kind of underpinning all those things. And you can put something very, I'm thinking about like Brick by Ben Folds 5. Like it's very sad lyric, about abortion and about like high school love and about lost dreams and all that kind of stuff. But it's a bop, and that slightly uncomfortable, like, I shouldn't be bopping to this right now.
Yeah.
Like lands as another character in our psyche.
Very pumped up kicks.
Yeah, that allows us to kind of feel maybe some of the, I shouldn't be like bopping to this because this is bigger than it is. And that cognitive dissonance, I think, music can get underneath people's skin and get to that kind of the crux of ideas that we hold that are actually like at odds, and rewire our brains. It's a phenomenal thing.
Yes. Oh, man. I really love both of your answers. Thank you guys for sharing. I really appreciate the relationship you two seem to have with music. I think that it, like you've said, you do it very often, both as your own and in individuals and as part of work. And it just, there is clearly a good layer of like appreciation and understanding that happens for you both. But then you found a way to connect that between the two of you. And, I've been fortunate enough to interview a handful of, married duos who make music together. And it's really, it's nice to kind of have gotten to the point on my end where like I can kind of see some of the correlative things that lead to what I feel like is a really positive experience. But I really appreciate your answers, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions. Guys, the questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one is pretty straightforward. If the band could share a bill with any other act, the only requirement is they have to currently be around and doing stuff. Who would you each want it to be? Nickelback, we're looking at you.
I will do a show with you, Nickelback. I'll do a show with you in Portland, Oregon. It'll be fine. Don't worry.
Amazing. Well, it would be a great time. I think when I was thinking about this, kind of, there's a whole bunch of thoughts going in my mind, but I still think Joni Mitchell.
Okay.
I think, I love Joni. I think watching her work with Brandy Carlisle, and also, I can't remember who was the big country star that was sitting right behind her at Newport Folk Festival.
Winona?
Red hair.
Yeah, Winona Judd.
Winona Judd. And Winona Judd had just lost her mother. And there's Winona Judd, legend of country music, sitting behind Joni Mitchell, just sobbing.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, there are artists who like, they're special people. And Joni, I think, is one of those people who just honest, phenomenal, just turned into this wonderful, cranky old woman who doesn't give an absolute flying fuck. And I just love that. I do love all of those old 60s and 70s folk people who are like politically engaged, who realized that music wasn't just music. They were actually saying something about the world. We're actually trying to kind of like get to a different consciousness as a race. So I think Joni. I mean, it would be fucking scary.
Yeah.
That is scary.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can open the next time that James Taylor and Carole King tour together, I think that's really perfect. I'm named after a James Taylor song, so that's like, that would be a great full circle moment for me. But
Your dad would die.
My dad could die happy, I think, after that. Like that would, but just as far as like storytelling, songwriter, like that's just our home. I feel like that would just be Home. That would be home.
I love how both of our answers were old souls, obviously. Like,
Come on.
We want to share stages with people in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah. No question.
Yeah.
No, I dig that. I appreciate both those answers.
Yeah.
Subsequently, who's a local act that you guys are aware of that you haven't gotten to perform with yet, but you would like to?
No.
I really love Malachi Graham. That's her solo. I'm pretty sure that's her name. Solo act. She's in a band called Small Million as well.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother is the kind of the genius behind Music Portland.
Mm-hmm.
I love Malachi's stuff, and she just put out an album and then had like brain surgery, which was wild. So we saw her, a month or that before that. She's just astonishing. We just really, really love her stuff.
I'm dying to get on the low bar chorale stage.
Oh yeah,
Dying to. I want to so bad. I want to jam with those. Just everything they're doing with they got everybody singing along and they're teaching parts. Like that's just my heart and soul. I think they're phenomenal, and it's a different group every time, and every single one of them is on my short list of people I'd love to jam with.
Oh, and Nathan Earl. We love Nathan.
Yeah, we really do. We love Nathan Earl, and he plays with all of our friends all the time.
Nathan.
Yeah, come on.
Well, everybody, you know what to do.
Yeah.
At them in the comments.
Nathan Earl and Nickelback.
Yes. And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits. So have fun with it. This is the fun question. If the band's music could be the soundtrack to any movie, what movie would you pick?
Oh, boy.
Garden State 2. Come on, that soundtrack was so
cute
good.
that you think we're cool. That's so nice.
I just love that soundtrack. And surely we need another version of that. Surely in the Trump administration for the next 4 years, we need Garden State, this number 2.
We need a lot of things.
Yeah.
I feel like all of our songs are their own little mini movies. So this is going to be a wild ride of a film if it is. It's going all over the place. It is if Girl Interrupted was a mother-daughter drama comedy set in Ireland. That's the movie it would be. That's not a real movie, but that's the movie it would need to be in the moors of Ireland.
Or maybe like a new spaghetti western, like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
Feminist, like.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like Charlize Theron directs a feminist western.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of the existing movies will suffice. We have to make up our own movie. But yeah, I feel like that could work.
Yep.
Starring Kelly Bishop as the surly cowgirl.
As the sheriff.
Please, go back, make that happen.
I'm pretty sure some big name directors watch the show. We'll see about making it happen.
Pitch. I think that's a good pitch.
Internet, you know what to do. Start adding people that can make that happen. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could each add one abstract instrument into the band, so like no keys, no saxophone, like really get weird with it, what would you each add?
Tap shoes.
That might be one of the coolest things I've ever gotten.
I threaten to do it all the time because I'm bad at doing like percussion. It's the one thing I should be doing in our band because I'm essentially like instrumentally useless. But
well, I mean, Coldplay did the whole floor tom thing.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm bad with a shaker. I'm not allowed to play a tambourine.
No tambourines allowed.
Oh,
I have an ally.
Oh boy.
I have an ally.
Oh boy, Nickelback, I need you. I was a tap dancer for a long, long time, and I'm like, I could keep a beat with tap shoes, and I've seen people do it, and it is really impressive. And I feel like I may have needed to start 20 years ago.
I think I was a kid. My mum goes around and goes to things like Floriade, like flower shows. She loves flower shows. We're trying to get her to Portland, and once we told her it was the city of roses, she was like, "Oh, is it?" But so I think I was maybe like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there, early kind of teenage years or preteen. And we went to this flower show and we saw this band that were comprised of, like, they were making medieval music, but they'd also made their instruments. Like, it was that kind of like commitment to the craft that I was like, cool. And I think I've always kind of wanted to make like an album of like songs that are like current political statements, but in a complete like medieval, like folk dance kind of thing. I think that would be really interesting to be just like, you know what, Elon Musk is taking all our data. It's just like a hurdy-gurdy and like a lute,
like a fire.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, somebody else did bring up hurdy-gurdy as their
Hurdy-gurdy. It's a good instrument. A great name, hurdy-gurdy. I mean, yeah.
I did really like that tack piano moment that you had.
The tack piano moment?
Yeah, when we were recording at Red Rocket's Glare, and they had that little tack piano. That was a pretty cool sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, yeah. All right. With that being said, you guys, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and July?
Yes. Well, our big thing coming up in April is we're touring up the whole West Coast with our friend Flamey Grant, who is a
country gospel singer-songwriter drag queen.
Yep. Obviously very political. That's kind of her shtick in the times like this.
I was going to say all of America's favorite things at the moment.
Exactly. And we did this in 2023 for the first time with her. Taking to the road with her to do a whole West Coast
starting
tour.
in San Diego.
Yep, right up to Seattle.
Yep.
So that's coming through Portland. I don't know the date of when we are in Portland, but
it'll be in late April.
But yeah, that's the big thing happening for us. I produced 2 of Flamey's albums. And we're dear friends. I mean, we're just like we're life people, and we love that collaboration. It's fun. We all sing together, like big wailing harmonies and the whole thing. So
she's one of the friends we lived with during the pandemic, where we're doing the 700 cover songs. So that's our also home for us is singing with Flamey. So
exciting.
If you like laughter, if you like tears, if you have any sort of religious trauma or any sort of other trauma,
if you're a queer person trying to figure all that shit out,
you'll fit right in. So it's a good show.
Well, definitely looking forward to that. Any like new music coming out or anything like that we can look forward to?
We really should have new music coming out.
We were talking about trying to get a single out potentially for that tour.
Okay.
But yes,
surprise part 3.
Hey, why don't we just say we're gonna have it by July? We will have one new single out.
Yes. Yeah.
That sounds like a valid timeline.
Yeah, I like it.
Looking forward to that.
Now it's in print.
Yes. For this next one, then go and look straight at your camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
At Story and Tune, everywhere on the internet. StoryandTune.com, Story and Tune Instagram.
Wherever you like to be on the internet, except X, we're not there. But pretty much everywhere else. Yep. storyandtune@gmail. You can just shoot us an email if that's easy for you. And all of our live shows are right on our website.
And we always say, if you're having a bad day, we'll send you puppy memes.
Yeah, we've got a lot of those. So many.
Love that. That's amazing. All right. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
I think locally, if you're kind of local to Portland, we totally stan Easy Folk. Easy Folk Media. On Instagram, Joe Sanchez is just the most insane human. He's
absolute gem.
Yeah, he's up here in Vancouver. And just what they're doing in the world is beautiful because it's music and community. And we were part of their featured artist program last year, and it was a lifesaver for us having just moved here. And the people we met through that are now like soul friends and life friends. So they do a festival every August. That's the Easy Folk Festival. Couldn't hype that anymore. It's amazing.
And what should people do on the first Wednesday night of the month, Benjamin?
Oh, yes. And I helped start this thing called Writers Round Portland.
Yeah. We had somebody on, oh my God, why am I blanking on the name now?
Ronnie,
thank you.
Ronnie runs it. Ronnie,
Ronnie's
kind of the main lead, and I'm just sort of assisting Ronnie. We started the San Diego chapter when we were down there of Writers Round. There's about 9 chapters now around the country. Phenomenal place to bring your new shit. That's your new songs, if you want a new song. A great warm room, a place to really find out how a song's going, which that's rare. I mean, there's a lot of great rooms in Portland, but this is a town where you sometimes want to put your best foot forward. This room is about just trying stuff out in a really warm family kind of environment. So come on down. We have a couple of open rounds that people can register to play, and it's a phenomenal room. It's at Arbor Beer Lodge.
Which is all ages.
All ages.
Great.
Yep.
So bring your older kids.
Yep.
And your, high school musician kids who are interested in getting to know some songwriters or trying out a song for the first time. And 6 p.m. first Wednesday of the month.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you guys. With that being said, I have one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Awesome.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Roland Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation, but in all of music, what is an album you each feel is a little more on the obscure side? It's a little bit of a deep cut, something maybe not everybody would know. But what do you think everybody should know?
So I'm also a producer. I produce music and I work with people that I love dearly. I don't make a lot of music for other people, but the people I do make music with, I really care about and believe in. So our aforementioned Flamey Grant has 2 albums. The latest album is Church. It is just an insanely beautiful album. And in kind of the world we find ourselves in right now, I think has some really deep and profound things to say. It's a very personal record that we cut in Nashville, Tennessee with almost an entirely queer crew. It's just absolutely wonderful. So I would say check that out. And then I also produced an album last year with a San Diego artist called Will Stuckey. It's called Familiar Frontiers. Will is one of those musicians we all love to hate and have to love. Because
is he a Nickelback?
This is a joke that keeps on giving.
Yeah, this is...
I love it.
Couldn't be further from the truth, but I do love the joke.
Back if you ever want to be on the show.
Exactly. It's safe space here. But Will is, he plays everything, and his writing is...
It's just impeccable.
Yeah, impeccable. Yeah. And so that album, that's his first solo album, and we worked on that together for about 18 months. So it was a real labor of love, but couldn't be more proud of the result. And it's one of those records people need to hear. It's spectacular.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for those recommendations.
Thank you.
I love Justin Farron. That's the other one. I think the album is Pretty Free, right? Or Pretty Wild. Pretty Free.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Pretty Wild and Pretty Free. His most recent album is an album for songwriters for sure. He's a Bay Area guy, but it's an album that we listened to it through the first time in the car on the recommendation of another really amazing songwriter friend. And I was just swearing and screaming at the top of my lungs just because I was so mad that I didn't write it. You know how that happens sometimes as a writer where you're just like, how are you doing this and why? And oh my God, it's funny and witty and gorgeous and achy and just...
And blue collar.
It's so good.
When you have lyrics just like Costco.
He's got Costco in there.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's amazing. So 10 out of 10. Just my favorite songwriter album right now.
Gotcha. Well, thank you both for those recommendations. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having
us. We really appreciate it. And thanks for doing this. This is amazing work that you do. We appreciate it a lot.
I enjoy it a lot. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Ben Grace.
Karen Thurston.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show. Keep jamming.